Welcome to the Soul Sisters podcast today for episode 12 with myself, Alyssa, and my bestie, Miss Emily, soon to be Mrs. Emily Bell. Yay. We're here. We're here to talk about really exciting life updates. You know, think highlight reel of Instagram, and then we're also going to go off the rails and talk about what that actually looks like and some reality within the highlights. Yeah, what do you think about that, Em?
I think that we have some really exciting things coming up in our personal lives, and we're excited to share them with you guys, but we also just want to make sure that we're being very clear in the way that we're presenting these exciting life updates. We're pumped. We're going to have some fun, but also there is a reality that sets in which with each big exciting thing presents itself. And in no way should anyone feel like just because they're not at the place that they are, that like Alyssa and I are in life, that, you know, that you're behind in any way, shape, or form. We're all just out here, you know, trying to figure out what works for us. And so, yeah, we're excited to share, and I'm excited to be here.
Okay. Yeah, we talked right before this as we kind of prepare that it's like totally okay if you're maintaining, if you just got an abortion, if you just got in a relationship, if you're quitting a job, if you want to get a cat, like if that's your main highlight right now, that's okay. If you are struggling and you're still here, that is enough. And so I think it's just really important to both of us to really like acknowledge that this might be like annoying for someone to listen to if you just think like, oh, Emily's going to talk about getting married and Alyssa's going to talk about buying a house. It's like, well, that is not the case necessarily. We're doing that, but there's so many stressful things with that. And we're just happy that you're here and wherever you're at on your journey. I mean, we're also in the time of like that quarter life 30-year-old crisis time too. And so if you're thinking about buying a motorcycle or a snowmobile, shout out to my roommate, that's okay too. Like that's a great crisis if that's what you're experiencing. So we just want to acknowledge anyone who's listening and like let us know what you're going through and what's going on. What's your highlights? What's, not going well right now, which we will absolutely talk about within these highlights. So welcome. Tune in.
And I want to make a quick comment as well. We had a listener who reached to us on Instagram and said they typed up a DM, but Instagram told them it was too long and they didn't want to spam us. Always spam us. We want to hear your stories. We want to hear, what your perceptions are of the words that we're sharing. And we're so grateful that you left us that comment. But please don't ever feel like anything is too long. If Instagram tells you it's too long, copy and cut half of it, send the first half, and then send the second half. We want all of the DMs. We love hearing from all of you, and we love talking to all of you. And we're very grateful. So keep that in mind as we get into this episode, and let's share some life updates, navigate some big life updates here, Liz.
Yeah. And it's honestly more meaningful if we've known you from our youth. You know who you are. And thank you. We do love you and all of our listeners. It just makes me happy and want to cry. Okay. We just got back from a bachelorette party. We're not together anymore, but that was just so joyous of a time for me to celebrate you and just honestly be with you in your presence. So what was your bachelorette party like? Tell me.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you. It's always, the thing is with me is that I'm a very simple person. I just like having people that I love around me. That's just part of what keeps me going in life. And so we could have done nothing but sit there and look at each other, and I would have been astounded. I would have been like, this is the best thing ever. But it was a great weekend. I am very lucky to be at a point in my life where I have really gone through and hand selected who I keep, close enough to me to be able to be at my disposal in that capacity. And I feel like the group of women we had, you know, it was just fun. Like there was no drama and, you know, there wasn't any, you know, bad blood. Nobody, if you were overstimulated, instead of like getting annoyed, you just dismissed yourself and like went and had a moment. Or if you were tired and everyone else was awake, you went to bed. And it was just, the vibes were so high and I was so exceedingly grateful for that. There is even a moment on the first night where women from many, many, many different backgrounds with many different beliefs and who have partners with different beliefs and families with different beliefs had a conversation about politics, which is wild right now with the world that we live in. And it was so well executed and there was so much respect in that conversation. And I remember just sitting at that table in my slightly drunken state and being like, this is amazing, because I held my breath and I was like, this is going to go one way or the other. And I'm not really sure where we're headed. And I was looking around and I didn't see like one eye roll or one person, you know, being disgusted or taken back. And it was just a group of educated women listening and supporting each other, regardless of like where they were coming from. I was so impressed. I was just so impressed with the group of women I was surrounded by. I was so grateful.
Well, you picked them, so I'm not surprised, but I was impressed. And you know, it's an adult bachelorette party when Emily's, one of her highlights is a political conversation.
I mean, there were so many highlights, but yeah.
Yeah. And like just a plug on, I think it got us really excited for what a retreat could look like and feel like. Or maybe even just like a continued friend trip and just like inviting friends of friends and whoever wants to join and just kind of like being in that space together, because it really was, I think, healing for many people and less stressful than you like would think a bachelorette party can be like. I don't have much experience, but I am very grateful with the way that it was for me too.
I mean, I'm so glad, because that's the general feedback I got from each individual person, where I even remember at one point we were getting ready to leave. I don't know if you remember, but we were getting ready to leave. And I think it was our friend Steph, who like, she had her arms full of stuff. She was getting ready to walk out the door and she looked around and she went, man, that went so well for a group of 13 women in a cabin. Like, it's just so impressive to me that I am surrounded by such amazing people that we can just show up and have a good time. It doesn't matter what we're doing or who is there. It's like a judgment-free zone. You know, everybody just does what they want. And as long as you stay true to yourself and you can do what you want to do, I think that was the key to our success. So anyone out there that's planning a bachelorette party, my personal view on it is that there is no perfect way to do it. And I was really firm on the fact that I didn't want like crazy amounts of money being spent or crazy themes being taken out, or, you know, people having to buy things in excess or do things in excess to the point where like we were so stressed because we had to do this or we needed to be there. We had a few activities, but it was really a stress-free weekend. And if you can plan a party with people that are okay with that vibe, that's my one tip, because that was the best part of my whole weekend, was just the people I had around me.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't have friends like that, like that's okay. Maybe you can think of one person who you could see really actually vibing with you in the way that you want, like hang on to that person or like try to spend more time with that person. I know for me, like I don't know if I'll ever have a bachelorette party. I don't know if that's like gonna be something that I do, and that's okay. Like, so if you were listening to Emily's tip and you're like, fuck this tip, that's okay. But it is fun to just be open and open-minded and you know, just see what comes of it. So yeah.
It also doesn't have to be a bachelorette party tip. You could apply that to any party, any family function, gathering. You don't have to have 13 friends. You know, you put 3 girls in a room and there's still potential for cattiness there. So really the tip to take out of it, just surround yourself with people that lift you higher and that lift other people higher, and you know, keep the energy around you what you give to other people, and it ends up paying off in my experience.
Yeah. I love a life lesson from a bachelorette party. You really turned that into a nugget for me.
Here to help, just trying to guide through the wedding experience.
Okay, well, I guess moving along to the wedding, the marriage experience. I think I know why you're excited to be married. So I guess my questions for you are, you know, yay, tell me about marriage, and what are you most excited about with like the day of the marriage as well?
Usually when people ask me what I'm most excited about in terms of getting married, my answer is healthcare, and they laugh and they think I'm kidding, but I'm not, and Troy knows that. I am very excited. You know, being married to me, outside of the lovey-dovey of all of it, because Troy is amazing, and I think I know that just from listening to me mentioning him on other episodes, is that it a lot of the times, something I work through personally is that I looked at marriage as handcuffs for a really long time, and I looked at it as limiting, and now I have the perception of it being freeing. Because when I get married, I have the option anytime I want to go on Choice Healthcare, which means I can take my career in any path that I want. So I'm very much looking forward to that. But just generally, you know, I feel like I already live in the space of being married. I've lived with my partner for the last 6 out of 8 years that we've been together. And so we have a really great foundational, she's doing the big celebratory hand motions. We have a really great foundational relationship and a great communication system, and I just look forward to, you know, all the adventures that we're going to continue to have together, big and small. As far as, you know, day of, what I'm most excited for, I went to my Reiki master, and this was probably right after I got engaged. And I have a lot of anxiety about marriage in general, which is something that I work through in therapy. I have a really hard time with defining myself as a Mrs. Alyssa is going to be my officiant, so she knows that I don't want to be pronounced as Mrs. Troy Bell. I have a huge issue with that because I am my own person and I have my own identity, and all my accomplishments in life did not happen under Troy's name. So I just have like this really big connotation with like the word Mrs. and trading my goats for his rabbits, and now he owns me, and I don't love that. So I took that anxiety into my Reiki session, and we worked through some of that together, and I've worked on a lot of it in therapy. And one of the things that Brandon said to me was, there's going to be a moment when you get married where you stand up and you look at everyone in the room and you just have a sigh of relief. And when you have that sigh of relief, just know that all your generational and ancestral wounds are being healed by your marriage. And I thought that was the coolest thing I ever heard. It's really kept me grounded throughout the entire process. So I feel like I'm going to be too distracted that day to force the moment. So I'm really looking forward to having the moment and then looking back and realizing that I had it, because I probably won't even recognize it in that moment. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most in terms of that day.
Well said. And I love that you talked about marriage in your therapy sessions, like before getting married. That is kind of profound. Just like great job on your accomplishment, honestly. Like it's pretty amazing to be with someone for that long and like, yeah, move towards this with such thoughtfulness. and care, and not just like, woo, let's throw a party. Like, sure, it's that, but it's so much more from my experience of you just like talking about it. So what's been surprising to you through this process of like planning? And yeah, what's surprising or scary?
Well, surprising and scary, two different things, but I'll answer both.
Or both.
It was surprising. Surprising, I would say, I'm surprised. I wouldn't say I care as much as like your stereotypical bride would, but I'm surprised at how much I care. But the reason I care is because everyone else cares so much that I want everyone else to have a great time. Like, I'm never going to be the person that's like, we all have to have, you know, matching this, and your hair has to be this color, and like your dress, you know, that's just not my shit. It's okay if that is like your style. You're allowed to do whatever the fuck you want at your wedding. But it is surprising to me, after being someone who really viewed themselves as never getting married, that was never a goal for me. I never thought to myself, you know, one day you're going to get married and have this life with this man. I always just figured there'll be men, you know, so there'll be men, they'll come and go, always my friends. I never really thought, you know, this would be me. So I'm surprised at how much I care and how much effort I'm putting into it, but I believe that it's not really for myself. You know, this wedding is so important to so many people. My family loves this kind of shit. You know, they live for it. They live for a good event. They're Italian. They want to throw down. They want to be together. They want to have a good time. And I want them to have a good time. And I want to accommodate, you know, everyone who's coming in a way where they feel happy and comfortable. So I'm surprised at how much I care. I really thought I would care a little bit less. It turns out I care a little bit more. Probably because I care about people more than the actual like standard wedding things. What is scary? What'd you say?
It feels like a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, like a pleasant surprise is a good way to look at it for sure. What is scary to me, money is always scary to me. For those that don't know, you know, we've had some very kind offerings here and there, but the bulk of this wedding has been paid for by myself and by my mother, because we just have a very firm grasp on, you know, we don't need help. We're just going to do, you know, we want Troy's input, of course, it's his wedding, but in terms of money, this is something my mom really wanted to do for us, and ever since I was little, really wanted to do for me. And it's also something that I don't really want other people's money for. So therefore, money becomes scary because weddings are ridiculously expensive. And when you care so much about people having a good time and being accommodated, you're going to spend a hefty chunk of change. So money, you know, we're getting down to the wire. We're about 60 days out. Money starts to become very scary at the end. I think the other thing for me, if I'm being completely transparent, that is scary is divorce. I come from a divorce household. It's just what happened. Other people in my family are divorced. I have friends that have gone through horrible divorces, and every single day, you know, sometimes Troy has to talk me off the ledge because every single day I'm thinking about how can I be different? What are we going to do so we don't end up like that? How are we going to not be my parents? How are we not going to be my aunt and uncle? How are we not going to be my best friend and her husband? Like, how are we going to be different so that's not us? And it doesn't mean that we're never going to have problems or that we're not going to fight or disagree or have obstacles, but how are we going to handle them and never lose that communication so that we do not end up that way? Which is a really grim outlook on marriage.
Pretty realistic.
Yeah, it's scary. It's a scary thought to me because I never thought I would tether my life to someone else's. So now that I've made the conscious decision to do so, I am going to plan a life around it. And I'm not really good at when my plans don't go to plan. That's a thing that I struggle with. So I really don't want to have to endure that. I don't think anybody does. And being a child of divorce and seeing all of the sadness around me related to divorce, it's just something that scares me.
Yeah. I think with your conscientious commitment, here's a bunch of C's to communication and being curious about what your other partner wants and caring enough to ask has really kind of paved the way for you and Troy to really be a unique unit. And like you've probably tried so hard to not be like those people that you have created a really beautiful life for yourself. So if it took trauma and fear to get to this point, like it's amazing you created such beauty from the ashes, if you will. And I mean, you said it yourself, like healing these ancestral wounds, like you are really conscientiously doing that. And so I just really am inspired by you and so glad that you brought that up because I really didn't even think we'd get to this. So you always surprise me and just keep me interested too. Yeah, you and Troy are incredible. Would you mind mentioning like some of the ways that you're accommodating people at your wedding, or is it kind of like a surprise? Because you told me one thing and I was like, wow, that is so freaking thoughtful. Or should we wait?
Yes. No, we don't have to wait. What did I tell you? Because I forget. So
the searching, the scavenger hunt.
Oh, yes. So one of my big things is most people love to dance at a wedding. I certainly will be dancing. We danced my whole bachelorette party. We never stopped dancing. But that's not everybody's cup of tea. I have family members that I know, like, that's just not going to happen. We have some family members who are handicapped where they physically cannot do that. We have people that are older, people that are younger, people that are pregnant. So I wanted to make sure that there is something for everyone. So two things that we are doing is we are having a caricature artist, which I don't think I told you that, so that, people can create memories and have a moment together or by themselves if you need to, take a few minutes to just sit and collect because weddings are socially exhausting. And the other thing that we're doing that Alyssa mentioned is we are having kind of like a scavenger hunt where we're putting on the table a barcode for people to upload their pictures from the wedding so that we can all be this joint album together and share it through each other's eyes. But there's also suggestions like find the person that looks like they're having the most fun, or find the person that you think is the best dressed, or take a picture at your table. And so it's just something where everyone has something to do.
Yeah. Emily wears so many hats. She's an artist. She's a teacher. She can do anything. So if anyone needs an event planner for your next thing, I don't know if she'll do it, but like some of these ideas just kind of blew my mind. I never even thought of that. So I'm so excited. When I went to the Telluride Bluegrass Festival last year, maybe 2 years ago, my friend did like a bingo scavenger hunt. And
Epic.
I was so surprised at how into it I got. And I won like the prize at the end because I was just like, oh my God, like I would love to take photos of like the person having the most fun. That would just bring me the most joy. So I think a lot of people are really going to just love that. And I'm so excited. So thanks for just accommodating your loved ones. I think you think about these like minute details that just are like, whoa, how?
I just think, for me, I don't need the big party. I'm looking forward to the big party. Don't get me wrong, because my family is huge. My friends are wonderful. And, Troy's uncles are hilarious. And there's going to be a lot of good vibes there. But I don't need it. And so if we're going to, not force, but if we're going to ask everyone to sit in a room for 6 hours, I'm going to give them multiple things to do, not just the things that I like to do. Because I want everyone to have experience. And to be honest with you, like, there's really cheap ways to do that. If you're planning a wedding and you're like, I don't know that I can afford X, Y, and Z, print the cards and the barcodes out yourself. It costs like 89 cents. Or, our guest book, we have a phone where you can leave a message, or a Jenga board where you can write on the Jenga pieces and then also play, or playing cards. Like, there's really cheap ways to do these things. Target, Walmart, things like that. You don't have to break the bank to make people feel accommodated at all.
Reach. Well, I suppose, is there anything else that you want to say, like, about this experience for you?
Yeah. I think that getting married is a beautiful thing, and whatever you heard me say here today, take it with a grain of salt, because something that you learn very quickly as you go through this process is that people have a lot of opinions. And if I could give you one piece of advice, is that you can say no. You can say no to anything you want. I have used the word no more this year than I ever have. Don't do things that make you uncomfortable. Don't pay for things that you don't want to pay for. Don't feel like you have to do anything, because you don't. Just realize that you have the power to make it whatever you want, and it's really okay if it doesn't fit my aesthetic or their aesthetic, and the only opinion that matters is yours and your partner's, and don't lie to that.
Wow. So profound, and such a great segue to buying a house, because that is just not the case. You have to do certain things in certain orders. You have to do what other people tell you. If you say no, you lose money. Like, if I were to back out on buying a house right now, we'd lose probably like $8,000 of our money, which is literally so significant of an amount of money for us. So yeah, I think it's a really curious segue, and I'm really glad that I pulled that random last question out of my butt, because as you were saying, and I was like, oh, that sounds so nice to be able to say no. Like, I literally just had to say yes to a 7 point whatever interest rate on a house that's too much money, so it's just like debt to pay. So very different.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's start opposite then with the house buying. So in case you can't tell, Alyssa is buying a house. It's adorable. It's so sweet. And before I ask you my questions, I want you to tell people a little bit about the house that you're buying, when you close, like, tell us about the process a little bit.
Yeah. Caleb and I are not married. We have been together since pretty much right before COVID. Interest rates were so low during COVID, and we saw so many of our friends purchase homes, and we were like, we just haven't been together long enough to like make this commitment. And so time passed, and we just kept being like, we're still paying rent and we're still together, and we don't have any like end in sight in that, even though we, aren't really talking about marriage. So I think finally we just have been looking. We don't have a realtor like most people in the world do. Like, we haven't had any help. We've just been like lurking on Zillow here and there. But recently, like a couple of houses down on our street, a house had an open house, and we just went to it because we love our area. Lived here for 3 years already, which, if you know me in my past life, I've been extremely nomadic. But I keep surprising myself by not leaving. I'm very close to Red Rocks, which is certainly not an accident as to why I love this house. I love music. So yeah, we met this woman, and long story short, we're about to buy this house down the street, which is so funny to me. And it's kind of out of our price range, and we're closing next week. We have been more stressed than I think since a pandemic happened to us in different ways. These things are in our control, but pretty scary still. The pandemic was extremely scary, but everything felt extremely out of my control. So that's where we're at. Kind of withholding the excitement until it's really real, but at this point, it better be really real because we will be out of too much money that I can fathom.
Well, it's really real. You're closing on the 25th. So throw a party for you in, what day is it? In 5 days.
Oh my God.
So my first question coming off of that, we'll start kind of opposite, because I think it's important to note that while this is a great milestone, it's a very stressful one. And the stress is forthcoming in your description of this event for you. So I'd like to talk about first, if you're okay with it. What are you doing to help yourself navigate that stress? How are you coping? What tools are you using? The stress is not going to go away. You're going to have to feel it. So how do you come back down?
Yeah. I think this is probably the most scared I've been on my own account. I am jumping into the unknown in my mind, at least. I think I know what is going to happen and can be excited about the idea. So I do a lot of oh my gosh, the word's escaping me, like visualization of what the future could look like. I try to get excited about those things. Maybe someday I'll get bees. If I have a house, I can ask my neighbors for bees. I also have been doing a pro and con list in my head every single day, because every single day I'm like, we should bail. If we just didn't do this, it'd be fine. So I have to really tell myself the pros of buying a house every single day, and certainly also the cons. So I'm realistic and I'm not surprised too much by what comes my way. Yeah, just really a lot of pro and con visualization, and then trying to physically take care of myself. It's a little bit harder lately. I'm eating well because Caleb cooks for me. He's an incredible chef. But in terms of physically moving my body, I'm stressed and I'm working and I'm trying to think about packing, and I'm just mentally stressing instead of physically moving. So I'm trying to get back to the gym and get my friends to kind of hold me accountable and ask me hey, do you want to come do this thing? That's really all I got lately. And I've been doing those things pretty religiously, and I'm still very stressed. So I just want to tell everyone out there, it's totally okay to not be okay in whatever way that looks like. It's okay to have all the tools in the toolbox and you're still stressed at the end of it. I am certain that these tools are helping me to do better, but I'm still stressed. And that's okay. So yeah, that's what I'm up to.
Thanks for sharing that. It's a huge sense of vulnerability there, right? To talk about that side of it. I just want to touch upon the fact that Alyssa is a licensed therapist, right? She literally does have all of the tools in the toolbox. So if you are someone, maybe you're not buying a house, maybe you are going through something different and you just feel like no matter what you do, you can't get your feet out from under you. Sometimes even the professionals are just fucking having a time. Okay. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for sharing that, so that people can relate and understand that just because you're licensed and just because you have all the education and all the tools, it doesn't mean that when life is really hitting you hard, it's any better for you as opposed to, the cashier at the grocery store. We all go through it. So
yeah. And stress is really temporary, I try to tell myself, whereas maybe grief is gonna always be there. And so I think when you go through other things, it kind of makes it more realistic to be okay, this isn't gonna last forever. I can sit in this shit for a little while. It certainly helps to know stuff. Caleb has done so much research and been on the phone with the mortgage people for hours and hours. So shout out to that guy, who will probably never listen to this. But at least he's giving me the information, because I think without the information, I would be more stressed. And so, yeah.
So talk about that a little bit, Liz. So you said, without that information, you would probably be a little bit more stressed. And the reason you have that information is because you always advocate for yourself and ask questions. So what kind of questions are you asking to ensure that you do have all the information?
Yeah, well, luckily there's professionals who you have to pay to help you to know what to ask. It certainly helps if you have a friend who is a professional, and we do. Shannon Ryan from Golden is an incredible like title person. And she's like talked to us a lot about it. Like the amount of times we have just like had in-depth conversation with our friends about the housing market has been, I can't wait till it's over. I just can't wait till we're not talking about houses anymore. And I'm so grateful that that's her job. But yeah, like we didn't know anything about like these rates, having to choose who to go with and like comparing different costs for the different services of appraisals and inspections and oh my gosh, all that stuff. And then like just reading the fine print of closing, like we don't even have the closing papers yet, but just all of the things we've had to sign before even getting to that point. One of the main reasons we've really liked this area is because there's no HOA fees, there's no HOA. And then we were reading the fine print and it's like, oh, like read this covenant or covenant. And so that's basically like an old school HOA. And we were like, what? Like we're like so far into this process and now like we maybe have an HOA. And so Caleb like did all this research on finding the person who created this covenant from the 70s who lives in Arvada, which is like 20 minutes away from Golden. He no longer lives in this area. And we come to find that like this exists, but no one's enforcing it. So I really hope no one in my neighborhood is listening to this. But again, like everyone's breaking the rules. It's like you can't have a camper parked anywhere on the street. You can't have a motorcycle. You can't have a swamp cooler. You can't have chickens. And it's like, I can see those things all up and down my street. So just like really reading the fine print and asking like everything, just taking time to make appointments with these people that we're paying, and we should utilize them and be like, hey, like what should we be asking? Help us to like figure out what the fuck we're doing, because we really just had no idea. And I still feel like I honestly have no idea, but my brain often hurts with this stuff.
As most people's do, and you're literally working in the industry, you're not alone there. So I think like the biggest takeaway from that explanation is don't be afraid to ask questions. There quite literally is no stupid question. If you don't feel comfortable or don't understand something, not just in homeownership, but in life, you're never going to learn if you don't ask, right? Yeah. So ask and advocate for yourself. Thanks for sharing that.
Making a life lesson out of that, because to me, it's just a big ball of rambling stress, but that's true.
Well, when it's all said and done, when we record and we have an episode on September 19th of next year, it'll be a lesson and you can reflect back on it and expand even more. How are you feeling? Because you touched on your nomadic existence. So tell people a little bit about, you've lived, how you've traveled around, and how you're feeling, having a home base, because that's really different. I mean, it's not that different. You've been, in Colorado for quite a while now, but it is a pretty different existence to just know that you can't just pack up and leave. You have this responsibility now. So talk a little bit about that.
Oh man. Well, I've been thinking a lot about that pretty directly. And I think going home and like spending time with you and just being in the state that I'm from had me thinking about that a lot, because I still say home is Pennsylvania and it always will be, but it will definitely feel more like home to the place that I have $700,000 of debt in.
Oh, yeah.
So it just feels so real and scary to like know that my life and my home is like very firmly rooted in Colorado for at least the next 5 years until I, want to sell the house. Yeah. And so I don't really know how I feel about that. I think it's scary. I think like the nomadic life took me a really long time to like mourn and grieve. At the end of the day, I just got kind of tired moving all around and not having a support system in the way that I did my whole youth. I mean, Emily is a pretty big powerhouse of a friend. So to like not have anyone like that in person, like I've always had Emily, which has been honestly a huge like reason why I've been able to feel confident to travel and go and move about. But like at the end of the day, it's still kind of tiring. So I'm happy to be in this space. And I think still just thinking about the opportunities that could come with this home, like I will have equity. So when I do sell the house someday, like, oh, I can literally go travel wherever I want, or maybe I could rent the house out someday. And so I think in my heart, I'm never really going to give up being a nomad in one way or another. It's just who I like am. And I don't need to stifle that or hide it, but I just need to be realistic with what I need right now. And maybe it's like this social stigma around like, oh, you should have a house by this age or something. Maybe I've bought into that a little bit, but at the end of the day, I'm just sick of paying rent to fucking this management company that I'm paying rent to. So I think a lot of things have played into this like perfect storm of buying a home that we've been scared to do for consciously 4 years. Like we've pro con. Should we do this? Let's do this. Let's look at this house. So I'm just like trying to give myself grace because this is all stress that I've brought on to myself with like my insides and my decisions. It's not like, you know, your brain can't do this or this person doesn't exist on this planet anymore. It's like very much in my control. So I'm just trying to like take control. Just hard.
It is hard. It's probably well, you're being very vulnerable right now, and I appreciate it, but I also think that our friends that are listening will appreciate it as well. And it is hard, you know, even just at the end of that, you had to take a breath because it all can kind of knock you off your feet if you let it. Especially when it's not only a financial change, but it's literally a lifestyle change. So I'm really proud of you. I'm not proud of you because, you know, we're of the age and you could be buying a house and putting down roots. I'm proud of you because you're the most indecisive motherfucker I know. And and for you to say, okay, I'm going to make a choice, financially back that choice. This is my decision. I think is so powerful for you because it's not something that you do often, right? So while you're giving yourself grace, this is your reminder that you've also have had incredible growth throughout your life. And just because you decided one thing today doesn't mean that you can't, you know, money plays a factor, but you can change your mind anytime you want. Life is great at throwing balls like that. So I'm really proud of you.
There's an amazing book by Michael Pollan, who's one of my all-time favorite authors, and it's called You Can Change Your Mind. And it's really empowering and a fascinating, wonderful read.
Amazing. Put it on the Instagram page. Say it again. And the author?
You Can Change Your Mind. Michael Pollan.
He's
incredible. Michael Pollan has written Omnivore's Dilemma. He's written.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I love that guy. He also has a couple of little documentaries and stuff on I don't know what streaming service, and he has been exploring like psilocybin mushrooms too. So he's really just like, he built his own little she shed in the back of his house. He wrote a whole book on that. That's just what came to my mind for that. And then I guess going back to your lovely compliment that I sidestepped, anyone that is scared, like it is so okay to wait. Like I feel like I'm late to the party on this decision that I've been mulling around for so long. And I just think it's important to like recognize that these things are scary and it's okay if you don't immediately leap into it or jump into it. Like I think we firmly had our toes just like dipped and then wading in the water for a really long time before we are about to jump into this. And so, you know, anyone who's listening to like, it would be so wild to not be scared to do some of these things that we're doing. So being able to like support each other and like compliment and validate each other is just incredibly important to having the support and making these decisions. And I'm really grateful for them. I'm glad we had this conversation.
Very therapeutic. I also want to add to that in saying, just to be perfectly clear, Troy and I own a home, but if Troy never came along, I would rent until they put me in the ground at the end of my life. I would never own a home if I would not get a relationship with this man. For the exact reason of, the fear that we just about, where when I was renting, I could essentially do whatever I wanted. And so if you tie the two things together, both big life events, it's like buying a home and getting married, both very scary and also very permanent. And it's like, that permanency resonates. It hits you pretty hard down in your core. And if you're a millennial, permanency is even more scary than usual at this time. So just taking a moment to let you know that if you never want to buy a house, don't do it. I never wanted to buy a house. Relationships have compromised. I love my home. It's a wonderful place that we've built it into. I'm glad I'm here. But if Troy never came along, I probably would have never bought a house. I would have rented forever and I would have been perfectly fine. So wherever you're at, rock it out. Have a good time. While we're on the topic of buying a house, I do want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about what you're excited about, because I feel like in the midst of all the stress, maybe talking about the things that you're excited about might bring you a little bit of joy because you're smiling already. So
such a good mental health tip and trick, and this, and it's probably one of the most powerful. What I'm excited about, like I said, not paying the man so much anymore, even though I'm taking out debt to the man. But at least I'm getting something back from it. I'm excited. I got all my plants kind of sorted how I want to, so they can move. I'm getting rid of some plants that don't bring me joy, as I have way too many. I'm giving them away, so that brings me joy. I'm excited to maybe get chickens and bees. Not yet. I don't know what to do in the winter.
Oh yeah.
To just exist and keep moving in. But, I'm excited for next year. We're going to put garlic in the ground as soon as we get into the house and have some food. And though it's not the largest amount of land, we are absolutely going to be gardening. And I think I'm just excited for actually getting to take ownership in a space. And our roommate's coming with us. We probably wouldn't have been as confident in this decision to move without our wonderful roommate joining us. We're taking on another roommate to help us and help him. So I will be a woman living in a home with 3 boys and 2 boy cats. So wish me luck. But I am excited about that. And I'm scared, and I'm a lot of things right now, but so many things I'm excited for. I could have a whole longer list, but thanks for asking. And
I can't wait to see the garden. It's going to be fantastic.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, we have an amazing view looking into Golden. I think I'm going to buy a little game cam and try to take a picture there every day, or I don't really know my plan yet, but it's just so pretty, and I can't wait to have a little space for myself to just kind of appreciate nature, even though I'm still kind of in a city a bit. I wish I lived in the middle of nowhere, but realistically, I like to be close to an airport. I want to be able to see my friends and my family. I work in Denver, so I realistically cannot go move 4 hours into the wilderness at this point in time. So just trying to be excited about my situation and what I can do with where I'm at right now. It's really not the most ideal. It's way too expensive, we think, but it's hopefully worth it and worth being excited about. So
absolutely. Expand on that a little bit though, Liz. What about Golden brings you joy? Because I've been to Golden with you many times, and there's so much there that brings me joy, and I don't live there. So tell us a little bit about what is it about Golden that you were like, you know what, this is it. I could own property here.
Yeah. The town is really tiny, and it's kind of growing. It's going to be more gentrified, and we kind of see that, and don't love it, but it's a college town. and there's people who've been here for a really long time. You might see like horses riding down the road. You're close to mountain biking. You're very close to world-class rock climbing, Clear Creek Canyon. We're about an hour to skiing in multiple directions. And these were Caleb's boxes, like firm check boxes. And I would like to be closer to skiing. That was a checkbox that I'm missing. But living in a ski town is hard and very expensive. So back to Golden.
Bring it back.
Coming back to Golden. Yeah, so just like all the amenities, being close to the airport. We have a great friend group here. Very like open people. There's not Trump flags flying every direction you look. Like, sure, they're still around, but it's not as like startling as it is back in Pennsylvania right now. Denver's a great city. The music scene is all me, baby. I love bluegrass and jam bands, and I love to dance. I'm 6 minutes from Red Rocks with no red lights, and I have gone to so many shows there, often by myself, which is a perk of just me being to be me, like me getting to kind of explore what I'm comfortable with. So yeah, there's a lot of pros to Golden. And anyone who wants to come visit, like we'll be crammed, but we can always host, and would love to have you. I can pick you up from the airport. It's like 30 minutes. So hit your girl up. But yeah, good stuff.
Be careful. There's strangers that listen to this. There's strangers. Stranger danger. If we don't know you, if we don't know you, maybe just meet in a public place for coffee in Golden.
Yeah,
still we'd love to meet our listeners, but safely. But yeah, it sounds like Golden is a place that fills your cup and allows you to be yourself in the most expansive way and continue to grow. So I'm so happy that you found a community that you feel that way in.
Thanks. Yeah, and there's a river that runs right through, and I get to go and jump into the cold water anytime I want. Yeah. It's really dependent upon my mental health some days. Like, oh, I'm feeling like shit. If I can just get down to the water and jump in, then we'll be fine. And I do it a lot, really. So I'm trying to really like get my money's worth, if you will, from this movie.
The thing about Alyssa and I, friends, is that if there's water, we're gonna get in it.
Oh, for sure.
Home, we got in a river, we got in a creek, we got like under a waterfall, we were in a lake. Like, if there's water, we're going in it. So that's definitely a necessity as you buy a home, for sure. Any other, just updates, feelings, things you want people to know about the process of buying, or just how you're feeling as you go through it?
Not so much. Like, it definitely helps to know who you're getting into business with. Like, do your research around really anything if you have the time and the means. Like, if you're making a big decision, doing your research is really smart. Having these conversations with the people you're moving with are sometimes really hard. Like, I had to say, like, let's have dinner together and talk about what this is going to look like when we move and like what the expectations are. And so I think communication is just so incredibly important and should never be overlooked. Again, a life lesson in general, but certainly when making these big decisions, like, you have time to ask those questions and communicate. Like, you got time. So we're really fortunate to have that time. And I still could back out if I wanted to. I feel like I'm too far in at this point with the amount of money we've spent to get to this point. But like, at the end of the day, you still have the power to say no or ask whatever questions you want. And definitely make that pro and cons list, because I think it really helps you to see like, oh yeah, these cons are so valid and so scary. And also these pros are worth my fear and worth doing. So empower yourself. And, I don't think that I'm going to regret this decision. I sure hope not. You'll hear about it if I do.
Stay tuned. But yeah, thank you for being so vulnerable, because I know that, when we are so highly stressed, it is easier not to tell, even just our family members. I feel like we've done a lot of even just healing, talking here today about subjects where some people that are the closest to us might not even know some of these things are going through our mind. And now we're telling, hundreds of people that we don't know on the podcast. So it takes a lot of courage to be that vulnerable. And I'm really proud of you. And, however the wind blows us, we are going to be fine. And you just find sanctuary in the people that you love and you keep moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, if you probably have some kind of foundation as to who you are. And so, like Emily said, like knowing that the wind can blow and like you're still going to be you and you're going to be okay is, I think, really freeing and empowering. And there was something else I wanted to say, but I forgot it. So
that's okay. I want to touch upon before we leave you today, friends. Alyssa was talking about a lot of empowerment, and she was talking about, the fact that she feels like, because she's so deep in this process, she couldn't leave, but she could if she wanted to. And, it would be a lot of money, but she could make that decision. And I feel very similarly where I by no means feel the need to leave my engagement or my partner. Amazing, but I could. And I think that's a really powerful message, especially for women. You don't have to stay and do anything that you don't want to do. Not just women, everybody, but you don't have to stay for your kids. You don't have to stay because you're out of money. You don't have to continue to work a job you don't want to work if it's making you miserable. You have the choice, and you should feel empowered to live your life however you want, which a lot of times is easier said than done because we're worried about things like money and where we're going to live and how we're going to eat. And those are all extremely relevant, but you do have the power to take your life every way you want. And big life choices like this are exciting and they're scary. Just because it's a big life choice and just because it's a lot of money and just because you made a commitment, it doesn't mean that you have to do anything. If you wake up 4 months from now and you're not happy, get the fuck out. Go do something else, right? And so I just wanted to take a minute before we left you to talk on that because we made our decisions. We're happy in our decisions. We're stressed, but we're happy. But if I wake up tomorrow and it's not serving me anymore, you best believe Troy and I are going to have a conversation and, I'm going to do what I need to do to continue to empower myself. So I just want to make sure that message is exceedingly clear to all of our listeners.
Wow. You're the best. And so true. Like, that's so true. And if anyone ever needs anything, like, reach out. And what my brain was trying to remind me is that, like, Emily and I recognize we're going to be really busy and going through a lot of stuff in the next month. And so we planned this podcast to be around now because a lot is up and coming. And also we chose these topics because this is like the forefront of the mind right now. And so, like, if you're worried about things or like excited about something and just like want to talk about it, like, all we really did was have a few questions planned. Like, what are you stressed about? What are you excited about? How can you manage this? What are you doing? Like, you can have these conversations with the people that you love. And it really, like, for us, was not hard. It's a little scary knowing that someone else might be listening to this, but you have the power to be like, hey, buddy, like, can we talk about something? Like, do you have an hour of time and we can just like sit and have this conversation? So I think it's really healing and helpful and has made me, generally more excited and okay with where I'm at. So yeah. I'm so grateful.
I am grateful. We have great people around us, but if you're someone who feels like you don't have a friend in the world, or you're someone who can't have that kind of conversation with your family, and maybe therapy is too expensive for you at the time, send us a DM. We talk about these topics because they're relevant to us, but also we started this podcast because we recognize that there was an avenue here where if at least one person hears what we're talking about and can relate, that's enough. So if you're that person and there's something big happening, or you're in the middle of a change. We just had a super moon taking us into the fall harvest. There's a lot of emotions flying around right now. Send us a DM. We would love to talk to you. We're happy to listen. Alyssa literally knows how to do it professionally. She's really good at it as a friend and as a therapist. So please reach out if you don't have those people in your life, and if you do, definitely utilize them, because they want to love you and hear you.
Yeah. I had a client today say to me when I said, how's it going today? And they said, well, I'm not doing that great. I was like, well, do you think you're supposed to be doing that great all the time? Like, it's okay to not be okay sometimes. And I think that we have this expectation where it's like, highlight reels, I'm getting married, I'm buying a house, like everything's great. And it's like, even within those great things, like it's not all great. And maybe you don't have those great things. And it's still like okay that it's not that great. Like, it's okay to not be okay. And like Emily said, please reach out. Yeah, we're just really grateful to have stuff to talk about. And like, if you ever have a suggestion for a topic or you want to jump on it with us, like we're starting to kind of explore, what that would look like. And so we're pretty open, like the two most curious folks you'll meet. So thanks for listening to us if you've made it this far. And holy moly, episode 12. What are we going to do for lucky number 13? Who knows? But
Thank you. Thank you for being here with us today, friends. We're really just overjoyed to share this space with you, and we love you very much.
Oh,